To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll read our school district mission statement. Grounded by our history as one of the oldest publicly supported schools in Wisconsin, Mineral Point School District is the heart of a small community that educates and inspires our students for a bright future in a big world. Okay, this is regular May meeting. We'll call meeting to order. We'll do roll call.
Bergstrom, Bush,
Here.
Dunn,
Here.
Harris, Eisner,
Here.
Johnston,
Here.
Skelding.
Here. Bergstrom said she's running a little bit late and Harris is walking in the door. Okay, we'll go to recognitions.
Okay, so to start off tonight's recognitions, we will be introducing the top scholars for the class of 2025. We have 4 students that qualified. Valedictorian based on tiebreaker is Matthew Ganinen, followed by Lila Thousand, Kroll, Jaden Swinehart. Mr. Austin, would you like to say anything about our top scholars? And 3 of them? They're great kids.
You know, they work so hard and they're so involved with all these other things too. So it's just great to see the level of success they've had over the last 4 years. Really excited for their future.
It is, and I try to point this out every time we do a recognition. We talk about how come we're recognizing this athletic team or this athletic individual. And I try to keep pointing out these students are busy. We also get academic honors, you know, all state basketball players, all state wrestlers, so on and so forth. These students are all on those same kinds of lists. They are super involved in so many different things that are going on and yet still maintain this 4.0 grade point average. So, you know, hats off and congratulations to these students and our top scholars on an honor well deserved. So congratulations. Anybody like to say anything? Lots of no's back there. Okay. Next up, I see our Key Club advisors here. I'd like to ask her to come forward and speak on behalf of our top treasurer in the state.
So Cole was going to be here tonight, but he has to work. Another that is in everything, doing all the things, and being a great student. So I really think I was really happy that he applied and got this state honor at our decon, the Key Club's district convention held in Sheboygan a month or so ago. I really think that he deserves it because he was one of those first people to step up and help, but also really took on the treasurer role. We have the concession stands at every home boys basketball game, and he was in my room grabbing the cash box every day after, counting the money, getting it. Like, it was something that I didn't even have to think about anymore. Just took that and ran with it. So he really does deserve this, and I want to give a hats off to him because he really took that role and took the initiative to be the best treasurer he could be. So off to him.
Congratulations to Cole.
All right.
Next up, Pointer Nation is proud to announce 4 students recognized as United Nations Association of the United States of America and interview the 8th Annual Community Service Impact Awards. Kalea Biddick, Anthony Vallejo Cardenia, Cole Hendrick, and Faye Schutte all received this award through United Nations. So they taking on projects that, you know, that involve the community, their time outside of the school day. It's a wonderful honor. Kalea received this recognition a year ago, and to see that she's kind of helping lead a few more people down this road is great to see. So congratulations to our 4 students here receiving this award. WI Scholar Athlete Award. There are 16 boys and 16 girls that are recognized in the state of Wisconsin as WIAA Scholar Athletes. They receive points for individual and or team state tournament appearances, the number of sports that they're involved with, grade point average, and it is getting to be one of the most competitive awards that the WIAA hands out. We've been fortunate to have several winners. We felt like we had several more that certainly were eligible for this recognition. And this year, our very own Ellie Robinson was selected as a WIAA Scholar Athlete. She also goes down as the first father-daughter combo to be WIAA Scholar Athletes. Mr. Robinson, her dad was a Scholar Athlete a couple years ago from Boston School District. So congratulations, Ellie, on an outstanding award. Not to just rest on those laurels, but the FFA had a pretty successful outing recently. Mr. Robinson, would you care to speak to that?
Sure. Thank you again for recognizing this school board. I just mentioned somebody else, another teacher from a different district coming in tonight to be recognized for this. And they're like, wow, that's really nice your school board does it. They didn't get those same kind of recognition. So again, really appreciate the opportunity to be here and recognize all this fine work these students are doing in all the areas. So seems like it wasn't too long ago. We were here talking about some other FA activities, and a year ago, the team that went on to nationals. Well, a couple of our floriculture members are here, and Annie and Ellie, and we had Peyton Hines and Kendall Roof on that team too. That was second. And in the FFA, you got to be first to go on to the next. So we were just a little short of going to nationals, but again, a very good outing. That team had placed third there last year, moved up, and we were just a little bit short of that, but did an outstanding job. Annie was 5th overall as individual. Peyton Hines was 6th, and the other two not very far behind in the 20s. So good team effort there. Our livestock team placed 7th, which was just a little short of our goal. We had some higher marks going in. We thought we were maybe in the running for the whole thing this year, and things didn't quite work out. But the difference between 7th place and 4th place or 3rd place is only a few points. So really not that far out of it. When I say a few points, it probably is down to 20, 30 points to slide in those spots. So really good effort with Johnny being 5th individual overall in that. And then we had Aiden Patterson on there, Riley Sennin, and Faye Schutte also on that team that did very well. And the livestock team continued tradition that we've had. So this is the 25th year straight that we have placed in the top 10 in the state in livestock judging for Point FFA. So again, great job by all those teams and those students putting in a lot of extra work to that distance. I would just back up, seeing I got the floor for a moment. I'm back up to the Scholar Athlete. It was a tremendous day. We were there last Sunday, the 4th of May, and it was very well put on program by the WIAA, and very nice from the meal, the people, the way they present it. They put out a nice video of each of those qualifiers that are in there. And just like in anything in life, everything gets way more competitive. And I remember saying to Ellie when she was selected, and I was kind of looking back at my stuff, reminiscing. And I said, well, I don't know how I got selected because you're way better than I am and all this stuff. So it just changes and become more competitive. But all those things that went on here, and we're very fortunate in our family to be part of that too. But it was just a great opportunity and all those things. Again, thank you for all.
Congratulations. Our forensics team had a really good showing again this year. I was just seeing if somebody was online. I know there was a couple of the advisors were unable to attend tonight. But if we can get down here to the description. Okay. As a team, Mineral Point High School earned Distinction in Speech Award. This year, out of 291 schools, 14 schools were honored by this award. The number of students that we have participating in forensics continues to grow. I always keep encouraging kids that this is something great. I know there's speaking competitions in the FFA, Skills USA, those kinds of things. Getting up in front of somebody and speaking is a skill that you'll take for the rest of your life. Doesn't matter what you do, even if it's sitting down for a job interview, being able to speak to a stranger is an important skill to have. And our students really have taken to this and do an outstanding job. We had a couple groups earning a perfect score of 25 in gold medals. You see the group interpretation, Drew Ashman, Brett Bossert, Sadie Miller, Sophie Miller, and Ronica Thousand. Group interpretation, Kate James, Chloe McVeigh, Kendall Roof, Jessica Schubert, and Kendall Wanger. Then some other groups, poetry, Lily Burgett, Violet Renwick, prose, J.C. Privet, public address, Anthony Vallejo Cardania, and then some silvers, 23 or 24 points out of 25. Oh, and it goes on and on and on. So again, a great deal of participation. Anybody that was here that was in forensics, would you like to speak on behalf of any of those things? Anyone going?
I mean, I could just say I didn't get to go to the state competition this year because I was on a trip, so I did it virtually. But with the award, we won the Distinction in Speech Award as a team. As a team, prior to the last 4 years, we had only won state recognition once. I think that was in 2013 or 2014. We've either won the Excellence in Speech or the Distinction in Speech award for the past 4 years. So it's been a really good run the last couple of years for the forensics team. Hard work, good coaches. So yeah.
So congratulations to all the time, effort, and dedication by the staff and students part of our forensics program. And last but certainly not least, our success at State Solo Ensemble. Mr. Nevers, would you care to speak a little bit?
So this was a smaller year for us at State Solo Ensemble, but it was still a very successful day. It was back on April 26th or something like that. So the students, we had 5-6 events, something like that. They performed in front of judges and got rated. And I told Lily that she was going to talk about her experience. So go.
So I did a duet with Lily Fox, and I did a French solo and a clarinet solo, and all the judges were really cool, and they all had really good pointers to give to me for the things that I did, and I have used some of them already since then. So yeah, it was a really good experience, and I had a lot of fun.
Do you have the list on who actually?
We have 7 events. Yeah.
Ashley's on.
Hi. Yeah, we had 7 events. So Josie Dunn performed an oboe solo, excuse me, and a vocal classical solo. And then Lily had her 3 events that she just listed. And then Cooper McGuire and Tainton Riley also had classical solos.
So either earning silver or gold. And again, getting in front of somebody that you don't know and performing the skill is a life lesson that, our music people have certainly encouraged, and we've had a great deal of success through that. So congratulations to our solo ensemble participants and our instructors. That's all I have for recognitions.
Okay, that was awesome. Thanks to everyone for coming and showing out. Okay, now for some less exciting stuff. We get to, this is the
Logo.
this is our annual organizational business discussion where we decide officers for next year, including secretary, committee members, CISA and WASB delegates. And we approved the meeting schedule for the coming year. So we start with election of officers. So basically we would take nominations for office for each officer, and then we would take a motion and vote to close nominations, and then we would vote on the candidates if there were more than one. So I know in past there's been a motion to approve all the officers as is, but I don't think we're going to do that this year. I think there's, I know, Joni, you had expressed interest in maybe stepping down from vice president. So why don't we go ahead and start with president? I'll take nominations for that office.
I nominate Dr. Dunn as president.
Second.
Any other nominations? Otherwise, we'll take a motion to close the nominations.
I'll move to close the nominations.
Second.
Okay. And then we take a
Voice
a
vote.
voice vote.
Yeah, there's no money involved in this decision, so it could be a voice vote.
Okay, so
Well,
Yeah, there's no money yet.
so all in favor of closing the nominations for president, say aye. Anyone opposed? Abstain? Okay, I accept the nomination. Thank you.
I was gonna say you have to accept officially, right? Okay.
Next is vice president. Take nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Rachel Bergstrom as vice president. Second.
You accept the nomination?
I accept.
Make a motion to close nominations.
Okay, second. Okay. All in favor of closing nominations for vice president, say aye.
Sandy.
Councilman Harris, you vote in favor. Okay. Anyone opposed? Closing nominations. Okay. Next will be clerk. Take nominations for clerk. Current clerk is Member Harris.
I'll nominate Member Harris for clerk.
Okay. Okay. Any other nominations or motion to close nominations?
I'll make a motion to close nominations. Second.
Member Harris, you accept the nomination for
I
clerk?
accept.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of closing nominations, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Next is nomination for treasurer. Current treasurer is Member Skelding.
Nominate Member Skelding for treasurer.
Okay,
I second member Skelding.
nomination.
I accept.
Excellent. Okay. Any of the nominations or motion to close the nominations?
Motion to close the nomination.
I'll second.
Bergstrom Bush. All in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so Angie, we have myself as president, Rachel Bergstrom, vice president, Will Harris, clerk, Justin Skelding, treasurer. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next we'll appoint the secretary. The secretary is an employee of the district and will not be a member of the board. Of course, Angie Schubert is our current secretary. So I'll take a motion to approve
I'll
Angie as
nominate.
the secretary.
Yeah, or I'll nominate.
Is that,
Angie.
we go ahead and approve Angie as the secretary, or should we do nominations? Just go ahead and,
You can approve her as the secretary
I'll move to approve her secretary.
okay, thank you.
if she wanted.
Well, yeah, sorry.
And then we beg, please don't say no.
Okay, great. We got Harris, Bergstrom. Voice vote as well?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor of Angie Schubert as secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstentions. Okay. Thank you, Angie, for your continued excellence and willingness to help us out. Okay, next is establishment of board meeting dates and times. We will set the dates and times for future regularly scheduled board meetings. We currently meet on the second Monday of the month, 6 p.m. And typically the Christmas music concert has been on the second Monday of December. So we had been meeting at 5 o'clock on that date to accommodate attending the winter concert.
To verify that it is happening.
Thank you. That was my question. Okay. And then we have the extra Monday in October to certify the levy.
April for the oath.
Thank you. April, that was hard to read. April 27th for the oath. So 2 extra meetings there. If anyone has any concerns about any of these meetings, we could potentially change the date. If there's an anticipation of us not having our quorum in any of these dates.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think we have this conversation every year, but is there a reason that we wouldn't just move the October 13th board meeting to the 27th so we can hold the board meeting and certify the levy?
That's a good question. The prior reason has been to meet bills payable, I think, for a month, right?
Yep.
Is that still an issue or a concern given how we're currently doing bills payable?
It's probably not as big of a concern as it was prior to this, the more recent practice and having things go through the consent agenda. Because we are paying them weekly. When we were only paying monthly, everybody was expecting to see that check come at some point in time that second week of the month. So it would be possible to move that. It all depends on what kind of topics come up, in that month. If that board meeting tends to be rather short, kind of just looking at what the levy is, what the tax impact is going to be, and it's just certifying that for the upcoming school year. But the board chooses so they could make that just one meeting.
You recommend keeping them separate?
I do. As we start, as we're looking at the calendar that's been developed, I think we want to try to hold on to some things in that second Monday of the month.
Any other discussion around that? I don't have a strong opinion.
I was gonna ask the same question around the two meetings in April. Is there a way to combine the oath?
They're different members.
Yeah, could be a different member on the board.
Good point.
That one has to be no later than the fourth Monday of the month. Sometimes,
And when we're certifying the levy.
yeah,
Those dates can't be changed, could potentially change the regular board meeting, but.
Yeah.
Those meetings should be.
Well, I appreciate the sentiment, given that we've met over 50 times this last year. Again, I don't have a strong opinion. It sounds like the recommendation from administration is to keep it the same. We get the final say on when we meet, as long as we're not creating any logistical problems.
Move that we accept the schedule as presented. Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's Heisner and Skelding. I was gonna make one comment that I'm not gonna be at the July 14th meeting.
Oh, come on. It very seldom happens and then bam. Second one out of the gate.
That's the only one I think.
Don't say it out loud.
Okay.
Okay. Right, any discussion and comments on the current schedule as proposed? We all in favor?
Yep.
All in favor of this meeting schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, next we'll go to determination of board member salaries. Currently, each board member receives $600 annually. And also the secretary gets a stipend for each meeting, which we can vote to continue.
this one will have to be a roll call because it involves money then.
Yeah, thank you. And the $600 stipend for board members has been in place 10 years? I mean, long time.
Yeah, I would say at least that long.
Was there pay before that?
Was there pay before that?
There
Just
wasn't
got
pay.
increased?
There was, a group before that had gone to like a per meeting, per committee meeting stipend. for the meetings you were at. And then, kind of just switched to, tried to mix that in to something different, but it could either be like per meeting or annual, something like that. There were some restrictions on the verbiage, which is how we ended up at $600 annually.
I would like to propose that we increase it. I haven't talked to anybody about this. But I think, when I think about the $600, I'm sure that I donate more than that at the end of the day to all the, whether we're buying stuff for teachers and a teacher appreciation stuff at different times of the year, or donating to the Sunshine Fund, or just all the clubs and things that we get invited to. Like I'm sure I personally in the whole with what I would earn from the school board. Obviously with inflation and all those other things over the last 10 years, $600 doesn't mean as much as it maybe it used to. And if you look at our credit card bill and our budget, like I was just going to suggest we raise it to 2,000 to try to help also as we move off the board, potentially attract people, to the board to make it worth something, so that we get talent here, which I think will be important to our future. That's $14,000. And I mean, we approve several things in the credit card statement every month that are beyond that, or, on our bills payable. So I think in the overall grand scheme of the budget, which has got to be around $10 million or something per year, $14,000 is pretty small, but we play a pretty important role. It's either sort of that, or we just make it volunteer and we don't get paid. That's how I feel about it. But again, I just saw that we were talking about this today. I've discussed it maybe over the last few years a couple of times with people about pay. Those are just some thoughts. I'm not married to anything.
I think that if we increase it, the amount of times that we meet, if we increase it, that would open up for potential new school board members who might have to have childcare paid for every meeting. Because just these meetings alone are 12 to 14 meetings a year. That's not counting the committee meetings and our staff meetings and strategic planning and our retreats. So yeah, I like the idea of increasing it to attract board members in the future for many reasons.
I think that puts us on par too with surrounding areas, right?
We looked at comparisons a year or two ago, I think, Mitch. I think we were on the low side, and
You are.
there was a stipend for the board president for a lot of districts. Not that I'm supporting that, I'm just making this iconic.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so just the other thought I wanted to just share publicly is that, every board member can decline the stipend, they can donate the stipend in any way they see fit, or they can keep it for necessary things so they can attend a meeting like childcare and whatever. So there's options if any board member doesn't feel comfortable with that amount.
Some data was shared a week or two ago. How many times did the board meet over the last 12 months? Was it 53? So I think that's worth noting that we did meet 53 times. Having said that, going from 600 to 2,000 to me feels aggressive. I would be okay with an increase. I'm not sure and even doubling it to 1,200, I think I could be okay with. But I'm not sure I can take the leap to more than triple where we've been.
53 times
An opportunity, yes. We weren't all at every one. I don't know. I don't think any of us were at every single one, with the exception of Mitch.
Yeah, we're not going to be compensated for our time. I'm sure. if we were all consultants in our day jobs or whatever, we'd be charging $250 an hour or $300 an hour is the reality. So it's what I pay for, our CPAs and other things. So that's obviously not gonna happen, but, what is the base, Mitch, for the additive contracts? Like when we pay the coaches, was it $12.50 or $14.50?
You mean like what is 2% of the base or what is 4% of the base?
Yeah, like what do we pay for the base additive contract? I don't know, that's another marker.
Some coaches get paid 2%, some get paid 12%. I think it's that.
Board packet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we're talking about
Pretty
it.
sure we've got it in
I
here.
think the percentages applied to what is it? It's like 40 something thousand.
I think it's 41,101.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
So, 1% of that would be 400. 10%, let's see, 4,000, 4,100.
So a 3% base contract or a 3% additive contract is $1,233.05.
I mean, I think too, if I look at other forums like city council, I think they get $2,000 a year. We meet a lot more than they do. And I think too, at some point, we're all gonna choose to most likely not be on the board to let others run. And Christy, to your point, either single families with kids, I mean, at some point can't afford to serve for $600 a year. And I think we've talked about this almost every year since I've been on the board, and we've kicked the can down the road, rightfully so, to make investments in other areas. So it's never a right time to do it, but I think you make a solid case for increasing it.
I'll just make the motion to raise school board salaries to $2,000 per.
I'll second.
Okay. You want to include the secretary stipend in that? Yep. Which is $100 per meeting, right? Not to exceed 2,000 a year.
Yep.
Okay. You second that amended motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Andy, you haven't said anything?
I would like to hear what you have to say, Andy.
I don't know, I struggle coming out of a referendum, but that also is a little bit the point of the referendum is to pay for things we've been putting off for a number of years. And I do think, at least in terms of expectation, I'm not going to grade us on our own performance, but expectation of what is expected out of a school board member. I think we've raised the bar significantly in terms of time with committee meetings and the work we're doing with goals and strategic planning, and just the fact that strategic plans and goals and education itself, you used to be able to make a 5 or 6 year plan, and now if you can do the same thing for 2 years and keep up with the changes, you're lucky. So I always struggle with it, but I always know we all have the opportunity to give it back. I do think it's going to need to be. I don't think anybody's going to run for school board for $2,000, but I think it at least covers what they may have to spend, like you said, in terms of childcare and stuff, because at least we are going to continue to work at a committee level, which pretty much makes it nearly, two meetings every month, minimal. Now you're talking 26 meetings and you're back under $100 a night. And I don't pay for childcare, but I think it seems like you'd be lucky to get away with breaking even with the amount of time we put in. So I can support it. Like I said, I never anticipated voting for an increase, but I think the rationale is there based on the new standard that the board has set for what is expected to be a board member at Mineral Point.
Rachel, any comments?
I'm similar to Andy. I think I struggle with it. And also because it's not enough. Like if you're a single parent, it's just not enough to cover all the childcare that would be required, but it would definitely help. And like maybe there's some rearrangement we should think about going into the next year with committee meetings to make it more viable. Or like, I can't believe the amount of time we all are able to find and commit, so to make it more viable so that we don't have quite as many committee meetings or something, along with like a
If you put yourself in the shoes of one of our educators, how does it feel to hear that your Board of Education just gave themselves over a 300% increase?
I think just the percentage, right? Like,
Yeah.
increase itself is reasonable. I think the narrative around the percentage, that's where you had said 1,200,
right?
That feels like more reasonable than such a big jump.
And I guess on that same note, this is something we all do to support our community. There are people who their full-time job, their CPI increase probably wasn't much more than the increase that we're potentially voting on to give ourselves. Just a different perspective.
Important and valuable one.
How long have we been at 600?
Not sure
10
exactly,
years.
but
Think Andy?
10 years.
10 years?
When I started here, it was $50 per meeting.
Doing the math the other way, if we meet 53 times a year and we could make $50 a meeting, maybe we can do this as a full-time job. Not really.
well, I like the stipend model because it gives us the flexibility to
Yes.
meet as much as we need to get the work done.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I mean, we've got a motion for 2,000 on the table. If it fails, we can make a motion for a different amount. Okay, any more comments before we vote? Okay,
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
No.
Johnston,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
No,
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
no. Passes 4-3. Okay. Good conversation, thank you.
Good dialogue.
Lost my place. Here we
Standing
go.
committees.
Standing committees. Okay. We've got operations, policy, personnel, finance. Let's start with operations. I guess what I want to say is, and I might have said this in the email to you guys, but I think there's pros and cons to staying on the same committee. I think if you feel like you're doing some important work that's unfinished, I think there's some value in continuity there. But also, I think it's also good for the board members to spend time in each committee, kind of learning the nuts and bolts of each part of the district. So that's not to sway anyone in any direction, but just something to reflect on as we kind of contemplate here. I think I also, probably should have a different chair for each committee just to spread the kind of leadership work around. All right, so we'll start with operations. Bill, your chair.
Yeah, I feel like
It's, me and Christy.
just getting started, so I'd like to stay another year.
Okay.
That's okay.
I have not been on operations before, so if there is an opening on that committee, I would like to step into that committee.
Okay, you can take my spot on it. Welcome. Christy, you cool staying on operations, or do you want to?
I'm fine on operations. I have not been on finance yet, so if somebody, I do want to stay on policy, but if somebody wants to switch with finance,
I'd be up for that too.
Can trade with you and go on ops.
Gelding, ops, and then you'll take Gelding spot. Okay. Great. So Angie, we've got Harris operations. We've got Harris chair, Eisner, Skelding. Joni, you're currently not.
I'm not a chair of anything, so.
Why don't we see how things settle out and then we'll
Okay.
maybe decide vice chairs after that? That sounds good. Okay. Finance, we've got Bush chair, Eisner, and now Johnston. And you want to
That's
stay
on
on
my
as finance chair?
I certainly would.
I like finance, but I could switch it out for something else if somebody else is jonesing to be in there. Otherwise,
Anyone else want to be on finance? Okay. So we'll keep Bush chair of finance and then we'll have Eisner and Johnston. Next on personnel, got chair Skelding, Bergstrom, and Harris.
Prefer personnel over finance.
I prefer finance over personnel, but if somebody else wants to change it up.
And with the work kind of on the schedule, I would anticipate a lot of joint meetings anyway.
I would like to stay on the personnel committee.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind staying chair.
Okay. Then. You're good where you're at? Okay. Personnel committee will stay the same. Harris. We've got policy chair Johnston, Eisner, Bergstrom.
Good staying chair.
I'll stay on there. And policy.
Okay.
I would like to pull back from policy if I'm doing operations and finance.
You took my spot in operations, so I can move to policy. Unless someone else wants to be on policy. Oh, okay. Angie, we've got Chair Johnston, policy, and then Dunn, Bergstrom.
Can you remind me, finance personnel meets Monday? And policy and ops meets Wednesdays?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
But does that work for you?
Are you talking
I
to me?
wonder-
Does that work for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll make it work.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
We could
It's
switch
two
the,
different nights.
that's right. We could, we could move the committee order around on the schedule if that works for people. So just reflect on that a little bit.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's
Vice chair.
Yeah, let's do. Joni, do you want to be vice chair of operations or finance?
Finance, please.
Okay. Skelding, you okay with vice chair of ops? Okay. Did you get that, Angie?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got finance chair Bush, vice chair Eisner, personnel. Just wanted to stay chair. Rachel, I was wondering if we could make you vice chair of policy and then make Harris vice chair of personnel. Does that sound okay?
Everyone's been chosen for a team. No one's feeling left out. Okay, good.
Get all those changes, Angie?
Yep.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to approve all these committee changes together. Harris,
Okay.
ladies first.
That was
Sure.
Okay.
It was a tie call
Very
right there, yeah.
Harris, Bergstrom.
I thought my voice
Save it
changed.
Okay. All in favor of the committee changes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstentions. Okay, thanks, guys. Next is CISA 3 delegate. who's currently Joni.
Well, I sit on the CISA 3 Board of Control. So it fits well for me to be the delegate, but it is not an obligation that our district's delegate needs to also be me. So if somebody else is passionate about it, but since I'm going to the meetings anyway, it's convenient. So I'd be willing to do it unless somebody else is like really excited about it. I'm okay with that too.
I'll nominate Joni.
Again,
All right, all in favor of Joni, CISA 3 delegate, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, next, OSB delegate is Will Harris. Any thoughts on continuing, Will, or?
I'm happy to. Does everybody get a WASB packet in the mail?
Mhm.
You all get that? Okay, so it's not just me. Okay, so really the only thing I do is vote at the school board convention. That's the only unique duty. And this year, because of my ankle, I wasn't able to go, so I nominated somebody else.
Yep, I covered for it.
Yeah,
this
you
year.
covered.
Didn't- Yeah. it was the
So,
pinch hitter.
so we're able to do that. So I'm happy to fulfill the role again.
Okay, I'll take a motion for Will Harris as WASB delegate.
So moved.
I'll second.
Eisner Johnston, all in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, thanks, guys. Next is the Sunshine Fund. This is the time of year where we kind of revisit the status of the fund. This is where the district donates to the Mineral Point Excellence in Education Endowment Fund in honor of a former staff member or a mother of a staff member on behalf of the board and administrative team. So I asked Angie to send out just a summary. Thank you for doing that ahead of time. Looks like our balance is pretty decent, or? Yeah, it was in that ballpark.
That's what it was, in the 300s.
Can you just send us an email throughout the year if it gets below a certain critical amount?
Is it still, it's a cash thing, right? Like there's no Venmo option. I should do it tonight if I have to cash because I don't ever.
Well, you could Venmo me and I could pay the school if you wanted, if that's an okay practice.
I'm good with that.
I mean, I actually happen for once in my life to have a 20. but-
Nice.
I'm sure Danielle also has Venmo, so. I don't know.
That would be good.
The district will have a PayPal account?
Yeah, so like.
Would that be available then for, sorry, this is not an on-topic question. I will save it for outside of this meeting.
And we can donate school board salary, like a portion of it too when the time comes for that. Done that in the past.
Maybe when you do send an email, you could just remind us the best way to, maybe the most appropriate.
And if Venmo's an option, then.
Okay, okay.
Okay, next we'll go to consent agenda, which includes minutes of the regular April meeting, the oath of office meeting on April 28th, joint finance personnel on May 5th, operations on May 7th, and policy on May 7th. Also includes bills payable, credit card statement of activity, and the school board committee reports, which are basically in the minutes. So I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole, or we can approve each item individually.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole.
I'll second. Bertram Harris, any comments, questions about anything in the consent agenda? Okay, Angie, we'll take a vote.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Gelfing,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, next we'll go to communications. We'll start with any board communications received. Gonna start, Joni?
I don't believe I've had any board communications this last month.
I did not either.
I don't think I did either.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron. I had one, my bad. I guess it's just, it like probably happened right after the last board meeting that I addressed with Mitch, but I got a email from a parent that was concerned that some thing for summer school wasn't being offered for girls, but it was for boys.
And that has been correct.
And that's been resolved. It was just an oversight.
Yeah.
So we
Just a
did,
grade level,
yeah,
what grade level it was starting at, and that's been corrected so that it's a mirror image for each.
but we appreciated the heads up. So we took care of that.
Thank you for saying something, because I think you circulated that email and I didn't know how it
Yeah.
had got followed up on, so I'm glad it got addressed. Hey. Rachel, anything?
Nothing since last board meeting.
I did get one email shortly after the board meeting that I shared with the board, just regarding some feedback on the wrestling facility that we approved to move forward. I communicated with him. I think Mitch communicated with the person as well. So I'm sure that will be ongoing feedback. And have had several other comments or feedback regarding that building since we approved it. Mostly just questions and a lot of excitement, and just kind of a lot of people were for it, but wanted to know why we needed it. So
I know that one part of Gary's concerns was that the school district had paid some money towards the stadium project in the past. So I asked Mitch to look into that, and I think he emailed the whole board saying that he didn't find any evidence that the school district had paid any direct money to the stadium project. Does that resonate with your memory as well, or?
yeah, I think there was some misunderstanding almost right away about Fund 21 and whose money that was and what fund it was and stuff like that. So there was a belief that when it came out of Fund 21, it was school
That was school
money.
district money, but that's really a
But it's a
placeholder.
fundraising account.
It's a fundraising account, yes.
It's been in place for several years for a facility.
There's a Fund 21 stadium account for Fund 21, so they signage out there, that's when they make those contributions, it goes into that fund to help pay for any of the upgrades or projects that go into that, separate from the Gridiron Booster Club.
Thank you. I had one email from a parent with kind of a late concern following a prior incident that had already been addressed, the hit list incident, and concerned about his child being involved, because the child had just said in passing that she thinks she was somehow involved. But so we asked, and there was a question of what we were doing about it. So Mr. Austin followed up with the student just to kind of get clarity on what she had heard and what she was concerned about, and whether there was any real threat there. And I think we got confirmation that everything was okay and there was no active threat, and the student was mentally in a good place. So that was the follow-up on that. Do you want anything to that, Joseph? No? Okay. Okay. We'll go to citizen communication. Did anyone sign up? Okay. Does anyone in the room want to speak during public comment, or anyone online? You can use your raise hand icon. Going once, going twice. Okay. Next, we'll go to items for information and discussion. We'll start with our standing item of discussing school board priorities. In terms of recruitment, retaining staff, we're meeting with staff reps this Wednesday. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I sent out an email to all staff for Staff Appreciation Week. And thank you, Rachel, for coordinating, what was it, coffee and donuts? Is essentially. Yeah,
Little donut.
little donut.
Big coffee, little donuts.
Some fruit.
Great. Thanks for doing that. Anything you want to add on that topic?
On recruiting, retaining, no.
Yeah.
Safe schools, I think will tie into the
SEL
SEL
report.
report, so you can do the board governance.
Board governance, we have our summer retreat next month on the 16th. And we just reorganized our committees. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay. All right, next we'll go to the food service report.
Okay, Kimmy, thank you for joining us online. Kimmy Mum, our food service director, is here.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
How are you guys tonight?
Good.
All right. So jumping right into it. So I kind of pulled some reports from last April to this April, and our numbers look really good. We're up in breakfast counts. We're up in lunch counts. We're up in a la carte sales. And our total revenue is up about $2,500 for just the month of April from year to year. Another little update is we went through our administrative review. It's been quite the process. They did find a few little things, mostly just signage. We had to do some recipes, write them a little different, and write our production records a little different. Any questions on the audit?
There was also some policies that you'll have a second reading tonight of a couple of those policies, and then we'll be bringing the next set of policies under that admin review to the June policy committee meeting for first reading in June and then finalized in July. As we talked about before, one of them was the school meal, if they're negative accounts, does our policy match our practice? So that was one of the things we made an adjustment to. And the other one is some wellness things that Nurse Lindsay will be working on to kind of bring back to the policy committee as well. So, and then there was a couple of pieces of equipment we had to buy because of serving sizes, right?
Yeah, just some little stuff that went along with how like our proteins would weigh out. We needed to switch the spoon size basically so they would weigh out correctly to meet crediting requirements.
3-ounce scoop versus a 3.5-ounce scoop, something of that nature is one of the things that we had to do.
Mhm.
So pretty cost neutral, so to speak,
Yeah.
update for some of those things.
Amy, thanks for coming on. I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
One is, what did you learn from the audit experience and just your first year overall kind of running the program?
So from the audit, it was a lot, I'm not gonna lie. They come in they were here at 6 o'clock in the morning and they didn't leave until 3 or 3:30. So it's kind of an all day experience. So they go through and they pull every nutritional label, every piece of documentation that we keep, and go through everything. So I think for being our first year on our own and not having that backing from Taher, I think it actually went very, very well.
They were very complimentary too. The ladies from the Department of Public Instruction were very complimentary of the program and the staff that work in the kitchen, Kimmy and the staff. So I thought it went well as also.
Yeah.
My second question, Kimmy, is, when we first kind of were deciding to make the switch away from Taher, I got a lot of like parent feedback on how they think the food menu could be improved, and can we can we put more energy and investment into having more nutritional options for our kids? Nothing real specific, but I guess my point is, do you have any plans over the summer to make any significant changes or upgrades?
I do, and I actually talked to Matt and Kristen Staver already, and we're sending out a survey to the kids. to see what the kids would want, what they like on the menu, what they don't like on the menu, kind of just, I guess, to see what would make them want to eat lunch.
That sounds great. What about at the elementary school level in terms of engaging stakeholders for those kids?
We could do that down there. Kind of run some type of the same survey down there, but for that age group.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think we'd love to see that feedback on, you know, how the end users, meaning the students and their parents, feel about how it's going. And so yeah, if you could, I don't know if Joelle's developing the survey or who's doing that, but
I think Kristen's doing it with media.
oh, okay. Maybe we could figure out a team to maybe survey the elementary school parents and get their thoughts as well. That would be great data to have for year one.
Yeah. So my other kind of couple of updates too, we're looking at upping our meal prices. So we have not raised a lunch price, I don't think, in 3 years. So with the cost of everything going up, the max we can go with is 10 cents for DPI, which I think is fair, considering how expensive everything else is getting.
When do we typically vote on meal prices for the year?
Over the summer.
Yeah.
We do that this summer. Will we have access to like the federal free and reduced lunch rates and all that stuff?
That's what we're kind of wait for.
Okay.
And then
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then kind of off of that, my other suggestion is looking into possibly making our purchases that we would normally make in the fall when we come back now, in case these tariffs hit and all of this pricing of food equipment from overseas goes up. Is that something the board would be okay with?
When you say food equipment, can you elaborate?
So like replacing lunch trays, replacing some silverware stuff, kind of small containers, stuff like that. Just
Bread, you know. Buy it now and save it for the next school year.
Kimmy, do you know what the kind of whole amount would be approximately?
I kind of have a mock order put together, and for both buildings, I'm looking at like 2,000 to 2,500, somewhere in there.
That's pretty negligible. So yeah, just do what you want.
Because I'm betting a lot of it's going to go way up, to be honest.
No, I think in general, we support any ideas you have to save money for the program. And so I would, you know, any ordering thoughts I would take to Mr. Wainwright. And then if it's a large enough amount, he'd bring it to the full board.
Okay.
But thank you for being thoughtful with that, for sure. And planning ahead. Sorry, I got one more question.
Okay.
I know you've been making an effort to kind of locally source a lot of your food, especially some of your meat products. Can you talk about to what extent you've had success there and what struggles or barriers you might have had with accessing local producers?
So some of it, I mean, we got some meat from Will at the beginning of the school year, and that was wonderful. It lasted a few months. And then we meet with Hillary Troster, who's in Linden. So she sources out from the different farmers in the area and gets the produce in, and then we purchase from her. We're looking at trying to get a pork grant from Wisconsin pork producers, so we're waiting on that grant from them.
That's one of the programs that's kind of on the chopping block with the Department of Education and the federal government too, is kind of that local sourcing and opportunities to help support local farmers and producers, and free and reduced lunches and school lunch programs and community pantries and things like that. So it may be a little bit more difficult as we move forward, but I think there is a good enough network in this area that we might be able to try to tie into that as much as we can yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that there may, potentially be an opportunity to kind of at the fair, at the Iowa County Fair. I don't know. So like a lot of those animals go up for sale. So people are buying them and then having them butchered at Avon or wherever. It could be a potential opportunity to like create awareness anyway, that if anybody doesn't need all of the meat, that they could donate to the school. And that's, we donated a steer last year. It was one of our own, but we basically had a sale fall through. Somebody was going to buy a steer and it didn't happen. So I had an extra steer on my hands. So we donated it to the school and it was, really easy. So we just had it shipped to Avon and they did everything and then it got delivered here. But maybe that could be a time when, and that's right when school's starting. So that's great. But I don't have a lot to do with the fair. So I don't know how I'm looking at you, how you would communicate that's an opportunity that exists. Or if you think that's realistic at all.
Maybe beef calves are selling for $1,200 a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
A brand new baby beef calf, a fresh baby. Yeah.
I see chickens down at the elementary school. We might be able to raise more of those and get our own eggs,
Right.
I mean, it's not, what's it gonna hurt, right? To try to put something out there to somebody. It can't hurt at all, just to say, hey, if you'd be interested, if you're not sure what you want to do with it, here's something that, you could make yourself available to the school district to help out in that capacity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, at least to put it out there.
Give me any help needed from the school board?
I don't think so. I think actually we're sitting pretty good. We're retaining all but one of our staff for next year. She is going to take care of her grandkids starting right after school ends this year. So I think otherwise, I think we're good.
You acted on that one.
Yeah, we
last
did.
one.
Yeah, we approved resignation. Is there a final audit report or anything that?
Yeah.
Typically we could give you a financial audit, kind of where, based on what the budget projections were, where do we end up? As I said, we've carried a pretty healthy fund balance in Fund 50, our food service fund, and we would need to spend that down a little bit. So anything that we're over this year, or including, this additional purchase, come out of some of that surplus, that fund balance. So we can give a final report as to where were we compared to our budget projections, and then we'll set projections for next year off of actuals for this year as we move forward. So yeah, you'll see something once we get done with the fiscal year for the food service.
Okay, great. I think including like the counts, like the meal counts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also real helpful too, just to get a sense of, are the kids using it more or less, than last year? That's always something I'm curious about.
Does the audit happen every year?
No, fortunately for us, once every 5 years.
I'm just curious if there's anything like to proceduralize with the audit.
I think like some of the things, we were using a recipe tracker software package that didn't meet the DPI's requirements. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So with DPI, what they're asking for, so what we have now, it's kind of hard at the high school because the high school, middle school services are so close. We use one paper right now and they would like them split, which is originally what we went with the menu system for. And then when they come in for the audit, we can run them together in a way. So the menu system wanted us to run 2 separate basically papers in a way per service. So like when we have to weigh in everything when we put it out and we weigh it back into the kitchen when it comes back in. So they want everything separate on 2 totally different documents. So that is not going to work for our program.
So there'll be some adjustments that we'll have to make there. And
Yep.
When you say, middle school lunch is first this year, and there's about 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops between the middle school and high school lunch.
17 minutes.
Thank you, 17 minutes. So to be able to say, hey, guess what? You know, you get a 3.5 ounce patty in the middle school and then turn around and, you know, or a serving of whatever, you know, barbecue. But the high school, they get 4 ounces, and, you know, so it's like, it's a little tough because it isn't 2 separate kitchens. There isn't the downtime between the lunches to kind of pull some of those things out. But that's something that came out of the audit that Kimmy's already made some changes to, and we'll be making sure that what we have matches what the DPI is looking for.
Correct.
You know, fun little things with inspections like that.
Any more questions for Kimmy?
Good update. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on a successful first year.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is the social emotional learning team.
I'll ask AG Klein to come forward.
Right, we put together kind of a two-sided handout for you guys. Okay, yeah, and it was in your board packet. You added it. Just kind of a summary of the year, some things that stuck out to the team. You know, obviously we continue our sources work. I think we're finding a lot of meaningful benefit both from the students and the engagement from the peer leaders, but the feedback from the teachers, like for example, today we held interviews for our school psychologist position, and one of the classroom teachers was talking about how we had gone in and modeled that program for her and how beneficial she thought it was. And so I think we're seeing it from both our teachers and our students. At the elementary level, we're continuing to use the SSIS curriculum. We've added the screening component of that program as well. So the screener ties in the social emotional learning competencies, those 5 areas that CASEL identifies, as well as externalizing and internalizing behaviors or areas of concern. And that screening, I think right now is for 3rd, 4th, 5th are the grades that we screen at. And then we screen multiple times a year. So we look at the fall, you know, work with kids, follow up with families, run groups, and then we run screenings other times throughout the year too, to make sure our efforts are working. So at the middle school, the weekly lessons are continuing. The topics they've kind of covered this year: perspective taking, goal setting, digital citizenship, career exploration, service projects, responsible decision making. And then you'll see kind of a parallel with the high school. We trained our faculty, our staff on mental health literacy, facilitated by CISA 3 earlier this winter. With mental health literacy was like January-ish. And so they came into that. The high school, we are working with CISA on Project Aware. So Project Aware, we're one of 3 pilot schools in this program through CISA, really focusing on mental health systems. That's where that mental health literacy part came in, is we wanted to start with some of the systems of just making sure that all of our staff knew what the words were that we were talking about, increasing wellness, educational equity. And then one of the things that they've been able to do through that program of Project Aware is provide us with some what we call life block ready activities for homeschool. And these are basically social emotional learning lessons that are designed. And I will say, I think we'll take credit. I think how the conversation with CISA started was last spring. Ms. Brunson and Mr. Austin were meeting with some CISA representatives and said, hey, do you know of any social emotional learning lessons? Like, this is what we're looking for. And so CISA's response was, as part of Project Aware, to create these lessons. And then we were invited to be a pilot school with them, give them feedback on the lessons. And I think they've been received really well. I like the topics that they've been able to cover. Those are listed there. But you know, one of the things that we're looking to do, again, skipping down, if we were to get the AOD grant that we applied to, one of those activities was to build in some time for us to create and extend our own life block lessons. through some work by some of the staff members. So, but I think that that's been a really nice addition to our weekly advisory period. So, we have grade checks on Mondays, but now we have life ready activities on Friday. So that's been nice. As you guys know, YRBS surveys, the middle school results for 2023 are finally here. We took middle school and high school did participate in the 2025 YRBS. That was in early April. So we're expecting results in the fall. And then just a couple of grant updates. So we are in year 2 of a 3-year grant for McKinney-Vento Homeless Grant, really focusing on making sure our students have postgraduate plans, early literacy achievement, removing barriers, academic success. So like, for example, one of the things that we're doing this summer is we have several of our elementary students coming in for extra tutoring for literacy support this summer, and that's being funded through the grant. So we do things throughout the course of the year, but that's one of the areas that we've kind of tied in, is trying to make sure our tutoring. We've also done some tutoring school year time for middle and high school as well. We are in year 2 of the AODA grant. This was really how we funded sources and got sources off the ground. Year 1 was really that middle school, high school part. Year 2 was really expanding it to the elementary level. We did apply for the next 2-year cycle of the grant. So I think the timing is, hopefully we'll find out in July if we were to receive that. That mini grant, I believe, was written by our peer leaders within sources. And it worked to do some messaging campaigns, and they worked on that with Miss Rob. And then Miss Rob also wrote for the Mental Health of America grant. That was really for some professional development for some of our staff to attend the NAMI conference that was held in Madison. It brought in a presenter, if you have middle school, high school students, maybe they came home talking about her last week. And then we just added to some curriculum stuff. On the back, we did analyze and put together some kind of like 3-year synopsis snapshot of YRBS. Obviously, we have that big spike in 2021, which is really when a lot of our work began. As you're going down the middle school, I'm just going to add, and we haven't started, but 2021, there was no middle school YRBS. So the numbers that are reported are from 7th and 8th grade surveys that were completed and conducted by Miss Brunson and Miss Rob, but it was only to 7th and 8th graders, not the whole middle school. And then we did like the one that talked about got help in times of emotional distress. The way they worded it was like sometimes, never, always, most of the time, and it just didn't line up to be able to transfer to a percentage like YRBS did. It was good feedback for us, but it didn't convert to a percentage. So if we didn't feel that they converted well, we did not include that number there. I think we see some nice trends and happening, especially at the high school level, with the numbers returning back down, coming back down in the areas of, anxiety and prolonged sadness, obviously suicide. We also added in some information about vaping, which we honestly hadn't really looked at a lot, but when we were reviewing the most recent results, we thought, oh, that's kind of startling. That one stuck out to us. So we went back and looked at that. And then I don't know how to really read that YRBS at the middle school level, because some of those numbers are concerning. They're going the wrong direction, but I guess we don't also know really what that 2021 number was. So are they coming back down again after being really spiked, or is it telling us that we need to make more of an exerted effort to do something different at the middle school? So I think we're really excited to review the 2025 results, because that gap of year 2021 in middle school was hard for us to kind of wrap our head around and see what that number means. So even the anxiety part, is 56% really an escalation, or did that peak at 70% and we were unaware of it and now it's coming back down? So we're just not sure.
Seems like a significant number of students.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I part of that is because we're talking about it more. There's always that. I know we were just talking about this today, where I know I've sat in on this discussion with Miss Brunson multiple times of everybody, all of us have anxiety in our life, right? But at some point it's a normal part of your life, and at some point it's debilitating to you. And so trying to make sure we help students recognize, like, seniors are going to have it, you're going to have anxiety, there's going to be stress, right? Like, stress is just part of our life, but how are you coping with it? How are we managing it? How is it, affecting all the other things you want to do? So you're right, this is just like a one word, like this is literally how it's stated, like, I've experienced significant problems with anxiety. Yes or no? Yeah, and so there's somewhat of a perception of, like, what do they think significant is?
I think anxiety is.
Right. And do they have a complete understanding of the word? It's definitely, words that we're talking about, but I think everybody's perception of what that is and what significant is to one person is not always significant to another. But yeah, I think always good things to talk about, but like hearing Miss Brunson talk about, like, normal to have stress. Like, we're all going to have stress, right? Like, I'm stressed I have to present in front of you, whatever it is. I'm really not, but we all have that, but it's not so significant. To me, it's not so significant that I'm like having a panic attack because I have to come up here and talk where,
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Thanks. Sorry. You didn't tell me 30 seconds. Yeah. But then I think, like, if we make some kids give a speech in front of the class, right? Like, there's just two different things. We're both experiencing stress or anxiety, but we have I have a better understanding that this is pretty typical. And so we're really trying to help our students understand that too, that at some places, these are normal experiences. They get to a point where they're debilitating and impacting your life, and that's where the trouble comes. So
before they take this quiz, are you able to explain any of the words?
So I was not up here. Do you know how the directions, were you in a room?
I don't actually, no, I'm not.
So I know it's a computer-based assessment. I know, like, there are standard directions, so I'm assuming kids log in and the standard directions are on the screen. I do know that all it says is, like, your answers remain private and, like, no names are ever released or anything like that.
I'm just thinking, like, are you guys able to be like, hey, there's going to be questions around anxiety?
No.
Anxiety?
No.
Okay.
No. And I do, like, even for, some of the students with plans that might have other adults read it to them for different tests, we don't in this case because their answers are private. And so I do think, whatever error of measurement is, there is probably some error of the student not understanding every question of everything. And I also do know some students aren't 100% truthful in the results because, the questions do get into, like, drug use or vaping or alcohol or, sexting and sexual, relations. And some people are just like, not talking about that because they think it's going to be, I'm going to know that was Dr. Dunn's answer, and we have no idea. They're broken down for us. They're consolidated. They're broken down by grade and they're broken down by gender if the population is big enough. But you can see, like, even on the vaping one, it was too small to report. So we didn't even get an answer. So if there's just not enough of a response, we just don't get anything. But I don't know that students 100% trust the computer when the computer says your answers are private.
I think the flip side of that, the staff will look at, like, that question about, significant anxiety and they'll put some lessons together based on this result. So then maybe that, I guess I don't have anxiety, or I had it briefly because I had to give a report today in front of my classmates, but that's not significant. It wasn't prolonged. It was just the one day, so I mean, I think some lessons do get formulated around.
I know, like, in our health education, they talk about stress and that not all stress is negative stress. Like, there are positive types of stress and again, more about, like, the coping through it and how do you navigate it when it occurs. And that's really our focus, is making sure our students have the tools or the resources to be able to go when they need it.
Are the trends consistent over each grade, or is one grade?
I would say no grade really stuck out to me in general. Like, a couple of the ones I would say, like, the anxiety is usually a little higher in the girls reporting it than boys, but I think that also follows a nationwide trend. Between, like, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, I didn't really see, not in the things we talked about, probably in the alcohol issue, maybe that one is a little bit more, I see later, but like, it also talks about like safe driving and wearing a seatbelt and, I mean, all of those things. No, I would say like they're pretty representative of how I would expect them to fall. I think there's not a big difference between grade levels in general on the areas where we're looking consistently.
Did you compare this to county?
We have not pulled up the information on the county yet, not this year with the most recent, I mean, we did that a couple of years ago. We have not drilled down to Iowa County or the region. So I know we know of that website and I know we've looked at it, but we did not do it for this one, no. And I think that would be a really good next step for, you know, when we get the 2025 results to not only look at like, where are they falling in our data across the line, but where is that falling in relation to the county?
Yeah, I think the mental health matters group would be interested to see where we are as a county.
Yeah.
For Iowa County.
I can make a note to do that with the county representation when we get our new results in, and hopefully they're timely. Fingers crossed. So.
Any other comments, questions for Nikki?
I know it takes a while to get things like this off the ground and for us to really see results. So if there's anything that we can do to support.
And that's where, like, I think when we were, even when we were applying for the most recent AODA grant, like, we were celebrating some of these, like the numbers still aren't where we want, but they're trending in the right direction. And especially at the time, we only had the high school results. We didn't have, middle school wasn't even released when we were doing the grant application. But, you know, we were able to see that a lot of kind of the things we focused on, though still higher than what we want, we're coming back down and moving in the right direction. And so we were pleased with that.
Can you remind me what happened with the SHAPE assessment?
Yeah, so we completed the SHAPE as part of our work with CISA 3 this year. As part of that Project Aware, we actually did it internally as a team. Admin took some components, a multi-representation of the team took other components, and then we reported it out with CISA, with our CISA trainers for the Project Aware. So it has been completed for this year. Yes, yeah. So it's linked in with that. I would say still kind of where we saw, even with the last time, is it's still working on some of those system structures. And that's kind of where the mental health literacy tied into, is making sure the mental health literacy and the systems for our, it's hard to do systems work if the staff don't understand what we're talking about. So that kind of like mental health literacy course actually came out of the work of what we were seeing with the SHAPE assessment. So. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll get an update on the status of next year's budget.
We've collected all of the requests. Danielle's put them together in Skyward, so kind of a preliminary budget on through some of the requests too, looking at what we know we can weed out right away. Some things that are just like, yeah, we know this is not going to be able to stay in the budget. It's looking at reducing some of those request numbers, having conversations with staff members around some of the big ticket hopes that they were submitting. We're still looking to see if there are things that we might be able to continue to update that would help offset next year's budget requests, such as some of the software programs that we might be using. Right now, the names are escaping me, but you know, like a Skyward purchase or
Purchased our program for our 504s and IEP we pre-purchased.
Thank you. You know, some of those kinds of things. Some things we purchased through Library 21 at CISA, so we're getting the best prices possible. But there are other things that we might use in-house that, okay, can we get a 1 year or can we get a 3 year, and what kind of price break? So there are things we're trying to knock off right now. So that would help also reduce what our budget looks like for the upcoming school year once we get to fiscal year 25-26. We'll be bringing forward a preliminary budget for approval in June kind of based on some of those numbers of what we can pare back and how we can shift some things around.
Over the last several years, we have trimmed and trimmed and trimmed. Are we judiciously going back and maybe putting a little bit of funds? Like, I'm just thinking things like classroom budgets and things of that nature. Are we, or are we using the funds that we now have available to kind of replenish some of those things that have maybe gotten a little tight?
I will say yes, that some of those funds are being put back. I will also say that some of the things that we've trimmed, we've been able to pre-purchase, which is kind of, we've trimmed the budget, but still been able to, build in some of those supplies ahead of time before the upcoming fiscal year. So, we've tried to do as much of that as we possibly could as well. I know one good example that jumps to mind is upgrading a Spanish resource for Mr. Ponsler. We had the funds, we were able to do that and take advantage of that right now and get a quality price on the resources that he will be able to use for next year. So instead of being in next year's budget where we would have trimmed it, it was something that we were able to take care of right now. We've done a lot of that as well.
You do the budget comparison?
In your board packets, you have comparisons between April of 24 and April of 25. And I don't know how we did it, but we hit the brakes and actually let 24 pass us by. At this point in time, a year ago, we had expanded 73.4% of our budget. And at this point in time, this year, we've only done 71% of our budget. And if you remember earlier on, those numbers were kind of flipped. We were always a little bit ahead. So we've kind of been able to slow that down a little bit. So again, I think we're in great position financially. We're still anticipating that deficit, but based on what we knew that deficit would be, it's going to be much lower than originally anticipated. I think we were looking at kind of that 400,000 to 500,000 in that preliminary number, and it will be probably in that 200 to 300. So I think we've done a lot of good things to try to help be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers in the community and the school district. And then food service, we're at about that 81, almost 82% of our budget. Remember, it does trail a month, but we're basically in the last month of the school year as well. So I feel good. And like Aunt Kimmy had said, we're about $2,500 ahead as far as student purchases at this point in time compared to a year ago, which is a good position for us to be in. And again, any kind of deficit will be offset by that food service fund balance.
Any questions or concerns about the budget? Okay, thanks, Mitch.
Yep.
We'll go to action items. First is the approval of the 25-26 additive contracts. Do we want to vote on this after closed session?
I think that makes good sense.
Yes.
Yeah. So, do I need a motion to table this till after a closed session?
And it can be a roll call.
So moved.
All in favor of moving action item 1 until after a closed session, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. So we'll go to approval of open enrollment, students in and out.
So in your board packet, you have a list of the applications to come in and out in terms of open enrollment for the school district. We've applied the guidelines that you set as established in January, which makes great sense that you do that in January for the upcoming school year when you have no idea what's happening. But based on those requirements, we would be asking that you approve there would be 24 in and 4 out. We would be denying 4 open enrolled seats in. There is the potential that there are some families connected in some of those no's, which is unfortunate. That makes a tough family decision. I know what I would do in that scenario. But as it stands right now, there are currently 24 applications to come into the district through open enrollment and 4 to go out. And I would recommend we approve those applications as presented.
I'll make a motion. We approve as presented.
Second.
Coach Skelding, any comments, questions?
Mitch, when it says like, the very last one, are you looking at it?
I've got it up in front of me.
Okay, 9th grade, and it just says high school program closed. What does that mean?
If you look all the way over in that first column
Uh-huh.
next to the school district name, it indicates that the student is coming to us with an IEP. And if you remember, all of those sections were closed based on services we're able to provide.
Got it. Sorry.
Oh, I see. I was thinking of it
Special
differently.
ed cap.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is a tuition waiver?
Students that currently attend here and move out of the district can finish this school year on what's called a tuition waiver. They don't have to apply for open enrollment. They say, we'd like to finish attending, so we don't charge them the tuition fee, so to speak. So if they're currently our student and it comes to open enrollment, they're in their student count, and therefore we would accept them automatically because they're currently a student. That's part of your policy. So they're here right now because they started the year with us and then moved just outside the school district. I think of one family that is just across our school district boundary line. They finished here under tuition waiver and want to continue coming to school here, so they're automatically would be accepted in open enrollment. We also applied that if
Apply for open enrollment, they're just automatic.
right.
Sorry, is that regardless of special needs?
Yes.
Because your policy says all current students and all siblings.
Yeah, okay.
They're in our student counts. The other one too, if you remember, is if a sibling is here, then it's automatic. So we've applied that as well. So we might have somebody that is here as a 3rd grader and now they have a preschool student that has open enrolled, and based on board policy, they're automatically accepted into our enrollment as well.
That's at least 7 students, it seems like.
And that includes if I'm just trying to remember what we had said, if the sibling has an IEP or
We ended up having to change that last year at the beginning of the year because initially we did have a caveat that said unless special ed programs are closed. And DPI directed us that you couldn't have those. If you have siblings are guaranteed for all is all.
Okay.
So it does not matter if the sibling has special education needs or not.
So we're up a plus 20.
All these numbers hold. And again,
Yeah.
as I said, every year open enrollment in is kind of a little bit of a roll of dice. I mean, people obviously take some time to decide, is this what I want to do? They are supposed to indicate to the school district earlier in the summer that, yep, we are coming. It's 100%. And until the first day of school, when students show up, is when I really am confident that the open enrolled students are here.
Follow up, because your policy now also created a waiting list if we were to have a wait list. So they actually do have to confirm their spot by the date in July, or we move on to the next waiting list. So that has at least indicated, but when you apply for open enrollment, you can list up to 3 schools. So we might not be the first choice listed on all of those applications. We might very well be the first and only choice listed. The parents have the right to list up to 3 schools to apply for open enrollment.
Of the 4 that are leaving or that are choosing to open and roll out, is there anything that we should take away, takeaways that we should note, like, oh, that is something we're not offering or something we could do in the future to retain students in similar situations?
I mean, we could certainly, ask you know, in a survey, are there programs that we don't offer?
Not anything we know at this time.
No.
Okay.
Thought we talked about doing an exit survey at one point.
Yes, if you're looking at that list of students in here, there's 2 of them that are want to attend the same virtual school. So, I mean, we can certainly reach out to the family and just, inquire as to the reasoning behind that choice. Whether or not they want to respond or not, I don't know.
Is Tomorrow River also a virtual school?
Yes.
I personally think that if students are leaving our district, I would like to know why. Is it something that we're not offering that maybe we just didn't offer this year? Or if there's something bigger going on, but I think that that would be important information to know.
So with 20 additional students, does that put us close to being like almost a quarter of our student population being open and as a result of open enrollment?
I would need to look and see how many seniors are open enrolled students, because we'll be losing some through graduation. So I'd have to look, kind of see that kind of data too, as that in and outs.
I think it was like, we were at like 112 or something last year, maybe. So that would be 2 grades.
Grades out of
14. 12 or 14, yeah. Approximately. It's important.
It's definitely impacting our ability to do the things we do.
Right.
Cool. Okay, any other comments? I think we have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Belding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. All right, next is approval of second reading of policies. Lucy, do you want to explain these or defer to Mitch or?
The first 2, filling board vacancies and capitalization depreciation. The updates come based on requirements. The filling board vacancy used to be, you could write your selection on a ballot. There's a question as to whether or not that violates open meeting laws. So therefore it needs to be a voice vote. You had a choice in the previous policy, but the policy recommendation that is a voice vote. So that's really the only change in that policy. Removes the paper ballot, and the capitalization depreciation increases the dollar amount to the federal guidelines. The school meal account charges was something that came out of our audit, and it was making sure that our practice and our policy aligned. We had a policy. Our practice was we were not denying students meals. We weren't, as I think Kimmy pointed out at one point in time, it actually costs more money to make a sandwich and separate from the rest of the meal. So we continue to provide a meal and work with families to offset those expenses. We try to strike a deal with there's an angel fund and those kinds of things that help offset some of the expenses that are needed. So our policy matches our practice.
Okay. I'll take a motion to approve these policies as presented, or we can approve them individually.
I'll move to approve them as presented.
Ms. Bergstrom, any comments or questions about these policy changes, updates?
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Belding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
3 down, 800 more to go.
Stop counting.
Baby steps, baby steps.
How many have been completed though? 100?
I don't know.
But it's close.
Yeah.
Like it. The important ones.
Yeah.
Just what we do. Everything changes.
It's the journey, not the destination.
I'll remember that the next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Says a non-policy committee member.
Yeah. Future policy. committee.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, next is approval of Fund 46 to upgrade the HVAC system at middle and high school.
So in the April Operations Committee meeting, we had representative from J.M. Brennan show up and talked about updating the controls, the actuators, the thermostats in the building. Kind of gave a ballpark price of $300,000 in that committee meeting. And then push was, can we get a little
360,000, I think.
somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, it was higher.
And then the push was, can we get a little bit more accurate number? They actually came in that same week then and went through and gave us a proposal that was $270,000 to do it. After they were able to get in and look at all the specifics. Because of the dollar amount, we went and asked for a second bid. Alpha Controls came in and gave us a second bid. And the bid wasn't necessarily an apples to apples comparison. So I had Dave DeVoe, our director of maintenance, reach back out to JM and say, okay, if this was the scope of your bid or if the scope of your project, give me a bid to update. And Alpha was like, I'll say 216,000 and JM Brennan's came in at like 212,000. So it was about a $3,000 difference. So comparable for apples to apples project. And then it was, well, what about changing over the thermostats and the control system itself? And there was about a $16,000 difference. It was about about $36,000 for JM and $50,000 for Alpha. Plus Alpha was asking for us to sign a service contract, basically, that would be tied to them on a yearly basis, where JM will provide the service. If we don't like it, as they said at the committee meeting, you're free to go wherever you want at that point in time. But I know both Dave and I are very comfortable with JM Brennan and would recommend moving forward with them for the project. I would ask that we approve it not to exceed $270,000. The reason I ask for that dollar amount is in your board packet, you have then something from our last operations committee meeting that was kind of that operation net zero energy pathway. Did you see the email today from Jenny?
I did, yeah.
So she didn't have a lot really to say, but there might be some areas where we might be able to get some savings. It may cost us a little bit more money, but I would not want to go over that 270. So coming in, we're probably looking at about 250,000 for JM to do it all. Can we get potentially some energy efficiency somewhere? The 220,000, it's a possibility, although this Jenny Brink, does that sound right? Is her last name? In her email back to Will and I, because I'd sent what JM is proposing to do is like, do you see any potential cost savings here? And she didn't really see anything. Unless there was a variable speed control, because occupancy sensors, she even said in her email, if it's a classroom, you're probably throwing money away trying to go with that because the room's going to be filled all day long. It's not like a locker room that might be used a couple of times a day. So it's like, okay, kick in and adjust it. So I would ask that you approve the Fund 46 expenditure not to exceed $270,000 and award that work to JM Brennan.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead. I'll second.
And then I'd like to just dive into a little bit to explain some of the stuff we've been working on at Ops. So I suggest that you read the net zero energy pathway thing when you have time, and I apologize, it took up half the board packet, but it's not super energy efficient for all this, but it's all right. It was really interesting. Some of these technologies I knew about, and some were like brand new. So it really goes through and costs out what it would be like to put solar on the high school, middle school, and the elementary school. And from their initial assessment, it actually came down a bit with better information. They really literally went through our whole school and all of our bills and came here and were like going through circuit breakers and all of this stuff to really understand like our energy use. And this was done through a grant, right, Matt? So we didn't pay anything for it. So really cool study about exactly what our buildings could handle. I would say that the really interesting thing to me was we use a lot of natural gas compared to electricity, obviously for the heating. So the idea is, could you not use as much natural gas by like moving things towards using electricity, whether it's appliances or the boilers, the kind of the main culprit. And then, you know, create your own electricity through solar and create heat through geothermal heat pumps. But there was all these also air transfer heat pumps, which I wasn't familiar with before. It was an interesting idea that's in here. And just things like the windows, insulation, LEDs. And maybe like the best thing that came out of this meeting was just there was somebody from Focus on Energy there who said you can actually wrap a lot of this stuff into a bigger grant. So if you wait and you do it all at the same time, which we've been sort of talking about a potential building referendum for this school, you know, down the road somewhere, maybe in 3 years, there's potential we could get a lot of that money granted through Focus on Energy. Hopefully it's still there at that time. So my thought and discussion with Mitch and Matt was like, maybe we hold off on some of the LED lighting in windows and other things to kind of wrap it all together and see if we can get a third of it paid for or whatever, and potentially some of the solar and other stuff. So there's a lot. Solar, there's a little more pressure just because there's money there right now and there may not be in the future. That doesn't have a lot to do with what we're asking you to approve, but I just wanted to give some of the background at what we're looking at. The thing that we're asking you to approve, essentially over the last year, if you'll remember, we have had to hire Jan Brennan, and then also our maintenance folks have had to go into the ceiling multiple times per week, per month throughout the winter to replace controls and actuators to get the heat to act right, because one room was like 90 degrees and another was, 40 or whatever. That's an exaggeration, but really all over the place. They don't make a lot of the parts anymore. And then also the computer system that runs this whole thing is going to stop being serviced in October. It's not the end of the world. We could get an old computer to run it, and we could probably keep trying to go on eBay and find parts for this system. But our thought was, what would it cost to just get it over with this summer when we don't have kids here, and get this thing to work and be good, hopefully for another 10 to 15 years. And so this is the quote for that. It's a lot of money. It's also a huge building. Like if you think about it, if this was an office or an industrial plant or whatever, this is an enormous space. So $270,000 isn't really that bad considering it's 30 years old, right, and we haven't invested a lot into it.
What were their thoughts on the life of the investment? Is it 10 years, 15 years?
From JM?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the technician that's been here truly believes that we've got a lot of life left in our boilers, which was what had me up at night because of the potential expense of replacing boilers and the age of them. Yeah, I would say he's probably looking 15, maybe even 20 years with these upgrades. And yes, he's found supplies to replace what we have. The other piece on the computer component is security. It would be potentially open to cyber attacks because of a lack of security on the level of software that would be needed to run that computer. So they believe they're setting us up for a nice stretch here by moving us over in this direction.
Would Fund 46 go to like 600,000 after this?
Yeah, that was my question. What's our current balance in Fund 46?
I knew you'd ask this question and I forgot to ask Danielle.
Is
It would probably put us around 400, I would say, in Fund 46. I will get you a number tomorrow.
And that's after the encumbrance of the science.
Yes,
project?
yes.
Did you may have said this and I just didn't catch it. So during the operations committee, the energy folks talked a lot about the variable frequency drives and how that could potentially be like a low hanging fruit. And if we're doing this work already, this was an optimal time. Does the number that you quoted, if we say to 270, does that give a little wiggle room for Brennan to explore if there's anything there?
I believe it does. And again, this Jenny kind of looked through that and really wasn't like, here's the easiest thing to do is, switch this out for that.
Yeah.
I didn't see that in her.
Her main thing is a piece of equipment that we could go in and attach right now, which is just more about energy monitoring so that we can really understand when, where, in which classrooms, all this stuff, where are we losing energy? So then for future projects, we've got that in our back pocket. So that was the kind of one investment she suggested. And this price would definitely include that.
Yeah.
Give us space for that.
Great.
And then the only other just unsolicited advice we got was after Jay and Brennan had left and we were with the folks that are doing the science lab. They said, if you really like your heating guys, your heating and cooling people, you have a good relationship, you should stick with them because that's really difficult, especially if they don't have you on a contract and they're here and they're really great. And that was another thing where like, okay, this has been a great relationship, but we should probably stick with them. And that was great advice from those contractors.
Yeah, an architect and the general contractor for the science room project both spoke highly of the information that Jay and Brennan had shared with us and that relationship.
Rachel, what are you gonna?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the long-term maintenance plan and the life of this building and how this $270,000 investment would play out if there's a referendum for a building. Talk me through.
Yeah, the referendum for building would be more like what we're talking about, and it's a great question, is upgrades to this current building around tech ed and ag and other classroom space kind of down on that side of the building and resolving some of the security concerns that we have because there's an open entry, and then also it's a great opportunity to think about, and we already were before this, about windows, insulation, just any, be potentially air conditioning in the school, which we don't have in the whole school. So we wouldn't really, it's not like building a whole brand new building necessarily. It's just sort of adding on and sprucing things up.
Yeah, making it function.
The
I
tough
was
part
curious
is-
about the timing and
In meeting the demands kind of the workforce stuff that we talk a lot about. So the timing is pretty deliberate too, in terms of giving community a break from the current referendum. So maybe in like 2 or 3 years.
the timing of the new infrastructure will be fine because we could adjust whatever they put in now in these upgrades with a new overhaul system will be able to be adjusted when and if we add a space or we change the shape or
These
we
are-
add air conditioning.
These are,
Put in air conditioning.
and we asked that specifically, like, is this going to prevent us from doing air conditioning? Because that was on our list, and they said, no, we're not going to have to replace anything. And really, like, the way this works is we like go into the ceiling over there, and it's like equipment for 3 classrooms over there, and just feeding that, but then having it talk to the main system. So anything we add on, we'll just add more of the stuff and feed it into the system.
Okay, that's exactly.
Yeah.
You have a motion?
Do.
Oh, okay.
Liz Harris Eisner.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if not, I'd like to move it. And still support her.
Any last
Who you're
comments
voting
before we
for.
vote?
I just want to recognize, I find it pretty incredible, through the work of, not the board, but the entire district, staff, administration, and years of coming in under budget, that we are now able to do two major projects that would have cost, probably necessary projects that would have cost taxpayers more money, but we are able to use money they've already paid through diligence in finance and spending, and I'm just making sure we are not overspending. So I find that pretty incredible on the finance side of things, that we're able to do these two projects essentially free to the taxpayer.
Well said.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Spalding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Thanks. Yep, take care. See ya. Justin's gonna take off. All right, next we'll go to board business quickly. We have our next staff rep meeting this Wednesday. Is it 6 o'clock here?
Yep.
Mitch?
Yep.
Will we have kind of a tentative agenda for that meeting, or will it be kind of open forum, or to be determined?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the time frame? 6 to what?
7:30.
7:30, okay,
90 minutes.
thank you. Not
Um,
available.
They did ask for an agenda ahead of time for meetings, they meaning the staff reps, so that they can communicate and all of that. Just make sure to flag that.
Yeah, we talked about it at our last week. So, but which is probably just still getting feedback. But hopefully, if we can send something out to everyone in advance, as much in advance as possible. You good?
Share with me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming we'll have a quorum there. Tony, you're not.
I will not be
there.
there tomorrow evening or Wednesday evening.
You're gonna be gone. Yeah, that was you. Okay. Okay, and then just a reminder, make sure you have on our calendars, we'll be doing our summer retreat on June 16th. Does anyone have a strong opinion on location other than doing it here?
What time will it be?
I think it's at
6?
usual 6 o'clock time.
That's right.
That's what I have it as.
Here's fine, if it's available.
Okay. Well, I'll get a tentative agenda together for that as well. That's all I have for board business. Anyone else want to? Anything? Okay. All right. Employee services.
Longtime social studies teacher, current high school boys basketball coach Dan Burson tendered a letter indicating he would be retiring effective the end of the school year. I ask that you approve this with a posting, follow with thanks and gratitude for the amount of service that Dan has given. My response to him, I said, thank you doesn't really say enough. A lot of the things that Dan does kind of behind the scenes in support of the district, students, staff recognition, student recognitions. I mean, you name it. He's got his hand in a lot of things and he will be greatly missed.
Motion to approve the retirement and posting of this position, Mr. Burson.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I was like, what do we
I
refuse?
feel like the alumni,
Every
that
time
was
I wonder
appropriate.
Good call, good call.
We're reluctantly,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Is he also stepping down as the boys basketball coach?
He is. A lot of things were offered to him to stay connected, and he has indicated that he will be stepping away completely.
And hopping on the sub list.
I'm not sure I can twist his arm hard enough for that.
And the job posting includes something about Jeopardy because while I was never a student here, I understand Jeopardy is a big deal.
It might be part of the job interview process. How are you at coordinating and handling Jeopardy?
What is the social studies, the high school social studies teacher market look like? Are we gonna struggle to fill this position?
South or Platteville's, but I don't even remember what the day was called, and
Rural
I think
education.
I think there was like 20 social
We
studies
were-
majors
yeah,
that came up to talk to us.
Okay.
Yeah, it was incredible. I'm like, what, your social study? I said, I don't have
And
anything
did
yet.
you say another social study?
Yeah, so it was, and they said, Platteville had said, this is a rare group that's gone through with so many people involved in that, so.
That's a positive.
Well, the bar is high, so we better have.
Right. What?
There's no
Last year, he said it was a really large group.
anticipated schedule changes. Offerings will be the same regardless of higher.
I hope so.
Well, who's in charge of that? Okay.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
No, nothing will change that way.
Okay.
So the process of the schedule right now, nothing would change as far as what's.
I just want to say a couple words for these teachers that I had and Andy had. I think it's appropriate, you know. And I would love to hear from you too, Andy. But Mr. Burrison was just always super fun, and I think he still is today. He's maintained that, you know, kind of attitude, and I had him for baseball, basketball, and then he was just always there at every, you know, for football and other things too, to just help out all the time. But I remember when we had our prom issue a couple years ago, he had said he'd been at every single prom for, you know, whatever, 30, 40 years. And he's just a great guy, always there for kids, you know, like always making time. And I'm sure his hourly rate is probably really low.
Yes, it would be.
For the amount of time he put in to all of these things, just meticulously planning and supporting things. So, but Andy, you had him too.
I did, and worked with him for a number of years. And I think the thing that always struck me the most, given that he coached and all that stuff, is people would assume those were the students he kind of magnetized to or spent time with, and his ability to reach the fringe students and make them feel like they had a place or belong or a nickname at times. That's what I really admired the most, I think, is his room was always open to everybody, and going out of his way in the classroom to identify those students who maybe needed a little recognition or, you know, just somebody to speak to them, and doing that. That's what I found the most incredible. Because there are plenty of teachers who coach, and those are the students during the school that they teach and talk to, and just the number of students that I didn't know when I was talking to him that would walk by with a nickname and a smile and a giggle. I think we'll really miss that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I'm assuming it's late notice to name a varsity men's basketball coach. and approve that at this meeting since that has not been decided. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So, sorry, we had Harris and Bush. Go ahead.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Next up would be the final vote. It's the final notice of non-renewal. We had this conversation. We issued a preliminary notice to non-renew. It's for 2 staff people students that they service will be graduating at the end of the year. So I need you to take formal action to give the final notice of non-renewal so I can proceed with that process. Staff members are well aware, but they had an opportunity to request a meeting with the board. And while they're not happy, they also knew this day was coming. And therefore there is no request was made. So we would need to take action and issue the final notice of non-renewal.
I'll make a motion to issue the final notice of non-renewal.
For transparency, can we just name the titles of these positions?
Titles?
Yeah.
They're sign language interpreters.
Sign language interpreters. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Angie?
Johnston,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Dunn.
Yeah. Okay. Next is approval to hire of Chad Scullion for night custodian.
You acted on the resignation of one of our nighttime custodians, put in their 2-week notice. We posted, Chad came in. He is on kind of a training schedule, but would recommend hiring Chad Scullion to fill that nighttime custodian position. Here, it would be in this building.
Same FTE as the one.
Correct.
That
1.0 FTE.
left. Okay.
Yep.
Take a motion to approve the hire, or we could approve it after closed session. That's what
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Harris Johnston, yes. Any further comments, questions?
Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush.
Yes.
Yes.
Next up, we did an internal and external posting after we accepted the resignation of the girls basketball coach, varsity basketball coach. Applicants were accepted, interviewed, and the committee recommends the hiring of Meryl Brunson as the varsity girls basketball coach for the upcoming school year.
I see Mr. Carr's online. Chris, do you want to make any comments or just provide any context or endorsement for Mr. Brunson as the new coach?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can all hear me here?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, Merrill's first year in the district as a teacher, and he's been a real awesome team player, bouncing around, helping with middle school basketball and now coaching JV softball and seeing how he is with the girls. And he's got a resume that stacks up really, really well. Was a tremendous athlete in his day and has done his due diligence to be just as good as a coach. And making the call to Platteville, where he formerly was a varsity boys basketball coach and also a middle school coach. Their athletic director gave a ringing endorsement. And so that among the other things that I listed, we're very excited for Merrill to be taking the reins over.
He was previously varsity boys head coach at Platteville.
At Platteville, yes.
And then coach middle school for the
For what, for many years. Great, thanks, Chris. Any other comments or questions?
I'll make a motion to approve did we already do that?
I don't think we did.
Okay, I'll do that before I comment.
Second.
Coach Heisner.
And my comment is more procedural. It seems like we kind of go off and on about approving coaching hires at school board meetings. And we probably should just have some consistency at which coaches, and I think we've received emails prior about coaches who weren't approved by the board after they had left the district. So just something for us to keep in mind about which hires we want to approve at the board level, which hires we want the approved varsity coach to be able to make on their own, whatever that may be. I think we just want to set a level of consistency for who we are approving and who we are not, because it unintentionally creates a perspective that some candidates need to be approved by the board and some don't.
I totally agree, and I'm glad you said something. And when Mitch wanted to put this on the agenda, I'm like, are we approving coaches at board meetings now? And I don't know if that was kind of us. I don't know if we've just been lax in that practice, or is that something that you recommend as a new practice, that we at least approve the head coach of all varsity high school sports? Or, I mean, I agree. I think we should be consistent with this practice. Any thoughts, Mitch?
Well, if you trust us doing our due diligence, we could certainly hire anybody on that additive scale, coaches contracts. If you prefer the head of the program to run through the school board, I don't have an issue doing that either. I think assistants are things that we can take care of internally, without having to come to the school board. But I'm open to the direction the school board would like to see too. If you'd like to see head coaches come forward, we can continue to do that. If not, through the athletic department administration, we can approve that process, because we would do the same thing. We'd do background checks. We would have interview questions. We'd have a panel similar to what we do for the teaching staff, support staff. So
Practices of emails for head coaches. We don't
School
have
emails?
school emails.
Email address. Okay.
So Andy, just to clarify, what you're saying is that we should still be hiring the head coach and then allow that coach to hire.
I don't even have a recommendation other than we should be consistent with how we do it. I don't think it's a bad idea, because like teachers, it gets posted and gives the public 3 days to express any concerns that may not have come up in the evaluation process. Since they are going to be in charge of an entire set of teams. But I'm not opposed to trusting the way it's always been done. I just think we should be consistent with how we do it.
What inspired you to put this on the agenda for a full vote? I was just curious.
Well, I would lean into the reaction that the school had taken over the course of this last winter sports season, especially around this program, that, I felt that maybe the board wanted to weigh in on this as well. Again,
that's fair.
I think I'm a pretty good judge.
Women's basketball coaches, that's right.
Maybe some people say I don't know anything about it, but again, I just think coming through this past season, I wanted to make sure that the board had an opportunity to kind of weigh in on it. Again, I'm perfectly comfortable doing it and just notifying the school boards that, hey, we've hired a head coach. This is who it's going to be. But I think this time, certainly comfortable with this process.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Right.
Please, I mean, I
I think,
think,
Andy, your point, I had not, it had not occurred to me that there is value, because there's limitations, right? Even though we're following the procedure of like we have interview questions, there's an interview, there's a rubric or some kind of like ranking process that's consistent. Didn't occur to me that the public may have information or insight or concerns or uproar or something in any of these cases. So I do feel like because there's so much time that head coaches in all sports play with students, maybe it is a thing that we put, 'cause that's the line, right? That like, no matter what sport it is, no matter what extracurricular, if there's a head something, you know, when I think about the additive contracts, there's a line we could draw. And then because we're not scrutinizing, we're not doing our own background checks, and we're not asking, you know, it's really straightforward, but it does provide an opportunity to surface something that we may not be aware of. I think that's a clean line and a safe bet and publicly transparent for who's taking care of our kids.
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate us this board ever using it to second guess a hire. It just creates transparency in that window for things that may not have come up. And only because part of it is because we received some feedback after a prior coach left that why this coach was never presented to the public as a hire. Just however we do it, just if we remain consistent, and I think the transparency doesn't hurt by any means.
Are you aware of a board policy that directs us in any kind of way in terms of selecting coaches? No. Okay. What about like other school districts? And Chris, you might know, I mean, do head coaches go to full board approval? For high school varsity programs?
Yeah, I think it goes along the same lines as what you guys have been discussing. I think some districts do, some districts don't.
You have a strong opinion either way?
I like the points that you guys made about transparency and having it out there. So I would have no problem, you know, running through this, you know, not that we have a ton of open positions all the time, but when we do, I think it is a pretty powerful position within a school district that does affect a lot of students. So I think that, you know, if you guys feel good about it, it's appropriate.
Sounds like a good practice. So are we settling on head coaches, high school, all high school sports? Is that what we're settling on? Varsity?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Varsity head
Because,
coach.
they're really then the leader of that program.
Right.
The head basketball coach has responsibility then for all of the basketball and at some level, or in some way, they have responsibility all the way down to the 7th grade team.
You mentioned other extracurriculars.
I
don't feel super strongly about having to vote on like an FFA advisor. Or
I don't think
advisor.
there are other extracurriculars where we potentially have, at least maybe musical, but where we potentially have somebody leading that activity who is not already an employee of the district, whereas the sports head coaches, you could have a head coach that is not otherwise associated with the school district. So I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
we're never going to have a marching
Those are
band
already
director
covered.
who's not employed with the school.
Christy, could you make a note? We might want to just discuss whether that should be like a board policy. So we can
Yeah, again, consistency.
create a practice that other boards can follow. Okay.
And thanks for the thoughtfulness of putting this on the agenda, given the circumstances.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion about Mr. Brunson? I feel bad if he's paying attention.
Dear Mr. Brunson, most of that was not about you.
No, I mean, this seems like a great hire, so
Absolutely.
I'm pretty excited. Okay, we're gonna vote. I think it was Bush and somebody. Bush Heisner. Bush and somebody.
What time is it? Oh my.
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Eisner.
Yes.
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
John.
Yes. Okay, I'll take a motion to go into closed session to discuss some specifics about some of the additive contracts. And then, yep. There's a second.
We invite Mr. Carr to stay.
Yeah, and Mr. Carr will stay in closed session if that's okay.
Yep, that works for me.
I did.
Oh, we don't.
We don't need him?
Okay.
Okay. Never mind.
Sounds good. All right. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, who recommend?
I need a second on here. It's a motion to go into. closed
Second,
session.
I'll second.
Okay, got it. Harris,
Yes.
Eisner,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Bush,
Yes.
John.
Yes.